Hey guys, how you doing? Ron Zanut here. Okay, I'm about ready to start modding the 600T case to add the water cooling. And like I said in my the intro video, basically what I'm going to do is I'm putting two radiators in here. I'm going to have one a 360 rad that's going to be put in the top. Now my plan is to actually mount that in the top here, so I need to cut away pieces of this and actually mod this plastic and the metal. There's another way obviously to do it is to mount the rad underneath and put the fans in here. I'll take a look at both, but the rad that I have coming is very slim, and it's less than 30 mils. It's a Magicool Slimline Pro. And it is a 30 mil thick radiator. However, where the tank and the fittings are in the front, it's not square across the top. I don't have it here yet. I had an XSPC EX360, but that was just a little too long. I want to put it in the top here of this case, and so I know I've got a mod and cut all the way out here, but the EXPC 360, the XSPC EX360 came up to past this connector here, so I would have to chop it out, and I really don't want to do that. So the Magicool comes up past it, and it has a V, so I'm able to set that rad right in here without cutting this guy out of here. I think I do have to take the plastic back here on these, but that'll allow me to put the rad in the top here. Now I may wind up deciding to actually just mount it underneath and have the fans on top, but at least I'll have the flexibility. It'd be nice to have the fans just showing here and blowing up the air out. And then down in the front here, I'm going to add the Phobia Extreme, and I'm actually going to remove the drive bays right now just to see how that looks in there, and then I'm going to take apart the case so that I can start cutting the top and the plastic out. One of the nice things about this case is that they designed it so the panels in the front and the top and the back all come off by a series of clips. I don't know if you can see them, but there's a clip right here. Let's see, I put it down low. There's a clip right here, 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 right here for the back, here, here, and then three in the front and the same on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off those pieces. That's pretty nice. I think yeah, a couple of screws, and I have that separated. Also going to start now the cuts to the top of the control panel right here and right there. So we'll see how that comes out, and then when I get the rad, I think I have to trim back some of this, but I'm not sure yet. So as soon as I get the rad, I'll measure it, see if I need to take any of that off. But I definitely know I've got to take this, so that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, in order for me to be able to close this top on the case with the rad, or if I just put the fans in there, there's still interference with these this plastic frame that's underneath the mesh top. So I need to cut out just the inside section here, so leave all of this is going to be open directly to the mesh. So I bent the little tabs back, and now I'm going to take the Dremel and cut them so that there's no interference, and I can still close the lid as designed. We'll see how that comes out. Okay, got that center section of ribbing out. Now to deburr it a little bit and pop it back in. There we go. So nice and smooth and still strong and protected, so there's plenty of clearance in putting that top cover on with the radiator in the top or fans. Now what I plan to do is I put my radiator down here and my fans. That'll take up this space. I still have a place to put my SSD, and I'm only going to have one other drive in it. So there'll be an SSD in here, and probably maybe one 500 gigabyte mechanical drive or something like that. But because I think I'm going to go with the dual bay reservoir down here, and so that's where my res and my pump will be, feeding this radiator, feeding the CPU, feeding the graphics card, going back into a rad, coming back out and going into the pump. I think that's the loop order that I'm thinking of right now. So okay, so let's see what this looks like with Phobia rad. Now I understand they put a screw at the bottom to bleed, so it'll help you bleed your system. Now let's see, I could mount mounting this guy up here. I could mount the radiator like that. I don't know why I can't unless the screws don't reach. Maybe they don't. Otherwise I mount it like this. Okay, I see that, I have that. And then to bleed it, I'm going to have access to that screw. So, but that'll fit. I'm going to take this fan out the top and put it on the other side of this. And I was thinking about cutting out this, but I don't know if I need to do that. I was thinking about cutting this out to give even better airflow in, so it's not restrictive as much with these little pieces. But I don't know if I'm going to need to go through the hassle of cutting that out. I'm not sure. Definitely got to cut the top out though. So all right, so let me remove the fan. This fan nicely just pops, snaps right out. So what I need to do here now is okay, for mounting the 200mm fan that comes with the CORSAIR 600T to the radiator, the 200mm Phobia Extreme 200. You mount that in the front. What I wanted to do is to retain the mounting mechanism. I didn't want to have to create any new, drill any holes or mount any, do any special kind of mounting to mount the rad to the front of the case, because you want to make sure that it's level and everything. So there is a bracket that the fan comes with that's mounted here, that mounts to the front of the case. So if you have your 600T, take a look. There's two little tabs that sit through the bottom and the front, and then these top two snap in. And it's pretty snug. Even though it's plastic, it's snug. So I'm going to reuse that on, and I want to mount the radiator to it. So in order to do that, Phobia gives you two plates. One plate is for mounting various, I think 200mm fans, and the other one is for a 180. Now there are M3 holes in it, and it would be great if the plates were identical, because then you could mount your 200mm fan from the front, from those brackets, and also the one that comes out of the top. So that's what I'm doing. I'm mounting the one out of the top of the 600T. It's going to be mounted on the other side. So I have a push-pull of 200mm fans on in this case. The problem is though, they're not, the two plates are not the same, so you have to drill holes to mount the second fan. For the first one, what I did is there are screws that mount the fan to the bracket, to these two brackets. So I took those out, and I was able to use shorter M3 screws and mounted the fan right into the bracket. Okay, so now the fan is mounted to the bracket, and then with the screws that Phobia gives you, they're small flathead M3s, short ones, I think they're 5mm. I use those four on the corner. So now I have the rad mounted to its bracket, and then the fan mounted to the bracket, and then the bracket itself mounted to the rad. So I can install this right here in the front of the case. Now the one thing that I have there is a bleed screw on the top of the case right here that hits the bottom of this card cage, so I'm going to have to Dremel out a hole or cut out a space so that that bleed screw pops, comes through, and then I can actually use that to help drain the air out of the system. So, so you can reuse the bracket support mount that comes for the fan. You just have to replace those 4 screws that mounts the bracket to the fan with some shorter M3s, and then they go right into the existing holes of one of the Phobia brackets. Then when that's done, you take the screws that come with the Phobia rad, the little M3 5mm, and you secure that to the radiator. So you have half of the solution ready to go. And the other one is there are these 2 holes come with this bracket, and I believe this is for 180 mil fan. I'm not sure, I believe, but so that's the one that mounts to the radiator, the 4 corners, and then that was for whatever fan mount that is. So I had to mark. I took this fan, laid it over properly, and then through those holes, through the mounting holes, I marked all of them, and then I went ahead and drilled them out, so that now I'll be able to mount this fan directly to, and actually the screws that come with the fan that come out of the case is what I'll use to mount them on this side through, so it's secure. And then all I have to do is mount the fan to the radiator, and I have the full push-pull config for this 200mm Phobia that will mount right into the front of the case using the original mounting bracket that comes with the 600T. And then the key, again, the only other thing I have to do is, in order for this, I can force it in there, but if you can see, the top of the screw is scraped a little bit because it hits the bottom of the cage. So I just have to cut out a little spot in the bottom of the card cage. So I'll show you once that's completely modded and in. Okay, so finally for the other Corsair fan that was in the roof of the 600T, I took the other plate from the Phobia Extreme 200mm rad. One of the plates mounts the fan. I used to mount the fan to the front, as I showed you just a little while ago. And now this one, I flipped it over and marked the spots on this plate, and went ahead and drilled out some holes, and put the fan back over it. Got some screws, washers, and a nut, and so I now have the fan mounted to the other Phobia plate, adapter plate, and now I'm going to take that and mount it to the radiator. So I have everything assembled. This will go onto the back here, so I'm using the original clip bracket from the Phobia, from the Corsair fan to mount the whole radiator assembly back into the front of the 600T. So let me mount this guy on here, and then we'll see how it fits. And there's one other mod I have to make, which I'll show you again in a second. All right, I've got the plate mounted. So I have I got the pull fan, the push fan, and now I'm going to slide it in here to mount it. But the one thing that I've got to still do is this screw, this bleed screw, hits the underside of the drive cage. And actually, I marked it with some silver. Well, I marked it so that I know exactly where I need to make the hole in there. So let me do that, and then I'll show you. And then hopefully this guy will just slide right in, easy peasy. But this turns out good. So bottom line is you can use the 2 brackets that come with the Phobia. One of them already has the holes that would mount for you to mount your fan directly through the bracket into from the Corsair bracket into the plate, and then the plate with the provided 3M 5mm screws for the 4 corners gets you mounted to the one side of the radiator, but the other one takes a little bit of a modification. You just have to mark the proper hole spots from your fan onto the plate, drill the holes through, and then mount it with some screws and nuts and washers. And then I had to go out and buy a couple of M3 5mm screws. You got to make sure they're short enough that they don't rupture the fins on the other side, and so those do the job. So that looks good. Let's see if I can get it modded so I can fit it in here next. So there she is, all set up and mounted using the original bracket, the fans and the push-pull, using both of the fans from the CORSAIR 600T. The original one I was mounted in the front, and also the one that came from the top. It's locked in there using the support bracket mechanism, not going anywhere. And then you have access. You can see the you can get to the bleed screw on the top of the phobia with a little bit of extra space. And I made this is about 2 inches back. This cut is about 2 inches back from the front tip. It's about 3/4 of an inch wide and about 1 1/4 inches long. It probably could only needs maybe to be 1 inch long, but I gave it enough so that there wouldn't be any scraping on that screw. Alright, so now the next thing to do is finish cutting out the top. I got to cut out the space for where the reservoir fans and cut around the mounting points. So all that needs to be done yet. So I've got the right blades for the tool, and I'm going to get started on that. I'll show you how that goes. Top of the case now marked off, and it's time to break out the Dremel. I left the mounting points that are there for the rad and for the fans. So this section that'll be supported by those mounting points, and then over here where this other fan's going to be, that'll actually mount directly to the radiator from underneath. So I got to make sure it was cut out big enough so that the fan clearly doesn't hit any of the metal edge. Alright, so let's see what it looks like after it's been cut. Here's a view of the top piece, the plastic piece with the trim cut out. I cut it all the way back here, as you can see, and up near the front I cut out right up to these where the latching mechanisms are for the mesh screen on the top. And then I also had to trim out the plastic up around the edge as well. So the metal's been trimmed back so the radiator fits right on top. And this space back here, the fan's going to mount to the bottom of the radiator, and so that'll just drop in. And the other ones, the fans will come up through here and into the radiator, so that'll secure the radiator. But in order for me to get the rad, I was hoping to get the rad inside the top, and then you would only see the fans on the inside of the case. The radiator that I found, I originally had bought a XSPC EX360, and that's a nice radiator, but the EX360 has this area up here is all straight, and this is a Magicool Slimline Pro 360, and this one, you'll notice the tank is split a little here, so this gap allows the latching mechanism over there. There's no interference, so it fits right up against that that area. So let me see if I can zoom in, and you can see what I'm talking about. So right up there, I had to trim out all the plastic, but since this has this, I'll call it cleavage area, since it has, it actually goes right up there, and then by doing that, it fits in here, and also all the holes and everything line up just fine. So if you do want to put your rad in the top of your 600T and not underneath, even if it's a slimline one, I mean, most of the ones that are, this is a 30 mil thick one, so that could have been sticking out underneath, but I would rather have the fans, which are 25 mils, and that would give it a nicer appearance, a cleaner look, and not encroach on the edge of the motherboard. So that's really why I wanted to see if I could do this, and it looks like it's going to work. Now the other thing that I need to get here is the cover. Now this mesh cover will now fit, but you'll notice back here there's 4 tabs that go in the back of this, and those tabs are right here. There's usually just one here and one here that I had to shave off because so that you could actually get it in without having to force it. But there's still 2 right here in the middle that it'll lock onto. So I'm going to go ahead and show you, put this on. If the other 2 were there, that would have been more difficult. There we go. Now it is locked on there. I don't have the front trim piece on the front or on the back, but so that radiator is in there, and the only thing that's going to be sticking down from the top are the fans. And yeah, looks like the original plan is still good to go with a Magicool Slimline Pro 360 radiator. That will work, and the main reason it works is because this area right here has cleavage, so that this latching mechanism will come down. Now if you didn't want to use the latching mechanism, I'm not going to try it. I would imagine it will still go into these guys here, but there's no pressure. The spring thing here puts pressure on it, locks those in, so you know it would just lay in there. You could do that, and you might be able to get just a regular another 30 mil thick rad in there, but I wanted to keep that feature of the case, so everything from the outward looks like it's just like the original. And the other thing too that I think I had showed you is I had to trim out the ribbing. There was support ribbing in the middle here, so I had to take all that out, otherwise the rad would bump into it. And that was straightforward. That was easy. Alright, so now get the rest of the pieces together and clean up the case, and I think most of the water cooling pieces are here, so maybe we'll start building. That's it for now. Next video I will have the water block should be here, and I think, and then the fittings are the only thing that I don't have. So I've got a bunch of bits power fittings coming, and then I'll take you through whether I use a reservoir, tube reservoir, or a dual bay res. I think I decided which way to go. So that'll be the next one. That's it. And if this is the first time you're seeing any of my videos, I hope you like it. If you do, please like and favorite, and subscribe if you're so inclined.